Hello and welcome. Take a look on this piece of code. Very simple. Small integer, we send message plus to it and we pass 2 as a parameter. We can execute it, and we are getting 7. Now, what about this? Well, looks similar, but not exactly the same, right? So we have square brackets around it. Well, we're not really sure what is that. Well, why don't we inspect it? Look, block context template. So this object, it is an instance of class block context template. Well, what is that? Well, it is actually a piece of code ready to be executed, but not executed yet. Again, block, it is a piece of code ready to be executed, but not executed yet. Well, how can we execute it? By sending message value. Take a look. So who is the receiver here? This guy. And it is a block, right? And what do we send? We send message value to it. What shall happen? We'll see. Yeah. Block execute code which is contain, and we're getting the result. Okay. What can we do with block? Well, pretty much anything. So it is an object, like a normal object. Yes, it is holding some code ready to be executed, but it's still an object, and we can communicate with it. We can take it and store in the variable. This is an example. First line, we define a temporary variable block, and then look, we assign to that variable what? This. And this is what? Our block. Yep. Okay, and that works perfectly fine. What do you think about this code? So we took that block of code, store it in variable block, and then what? We are talking to transcript, which is a system transcript. We send message show column to it. And now what? What do we pass as a parameter? What we want to be shown on the system transcript? Well, block, this is our piece of code, right? Block. And we send message value to it. Value will execute the code inside of the block, right? And we are getting a result. Well, 5 plus 13 will be 18, right? And last message will convert it to string to make it printable on the system transcript. So let's check if it is working. I execute it, and look, I'm getting 18 on the system transcript. Great. Well, blocks are great, right? It's a piece of code to be ready to be executed, which can be managed as an object. Excellent. But what if we want to pass some additional information inside of the block? Can we do that? Take a look. So first line is simple. Second line, block assign this. And what is this? Well, it is a block, that's for sure. But take a look at the first part. So that's what we call one argument block. What does it mean? So it means that it's still a piece of code, right? It is a block ready to be executed. But in order to be executed, this block needs some additional parameter, some additional object. So we have to provide additional object in order to execute that block. So this is how can we pass information inside of the block. Great. Now what? Well, this is our piece of code, block, and we send message value to it, right? We want to execute it. But keep in mind, this is not a 0 argument block. This is 1 argument block. It's like a parameter, method with a parameter. So when you send this message, you have to provide a parameter. So let's see what will happen. Look, debugger. We received an error message. And what does this error says? Block context template. Yeah, this is our block variable, right? It is an instance of this class. And the error is value due to invalid argument count. Not really clear, but in reality, Well, if we take a look at our code, it's become very simple. Yes, we have one argument block which expects a parameter. Since we didn't provide any, so we're getting an error message. Take a look at this. So I fixed our code a little bit. So instead of sending message value, I'm sending a different message right now, right? Value column to our block, value column, and I pass string tom as a parameter. So what will happen at execution time? This string will be copied into this box. Okay, and then the body of the block will be executed. Transcript show, well, contents of variable name. Let's see. Okay, no error message. Great, so it is our block happy. So we provide additional object when we send the message value column, right? So our block happy, so it can be executed. So as you can see, string tom was inside of name variable. So, and it was printed on the system transcript. Here it is. Well, block, it is a piece of code, right? We understand that. It's like a method, but with no name. Okay, it's a piece of code ready to be executed. No name, no attachment to any class. Just like a normal object ready to be executed. Take a look on this block. So it is a block, right? 2 square brackets. So how many arguments here? Well, 2 arguments, right? So meaning this is a 2 argument block expecting 2 parameters. So we must provide 2 objects in order to execute this block. So in here we have what? We have a temporary variable inside of this block. So why not? So we define a temporary variable which is alive inside of this block, and we can, well, use it. Now what do we do here? So we take one parameter plus second parameter and we store result in our temporary variable r, and dot here, and then we multiply our result by 2 and return it from the block. Okay, simple enough. So now we have 2 argument block, so we have to send a message which actually takes 2 parameters. Simple enough. We're talking to our block object and we send message value column, one message, right? One keyed message with 2 parameters. So we provide 2 as a first parameter and 3 as a second parameter. So 2 will be copied into A and 3 will be copied into B. So in this part we will summarize it. It will be 5, and 5 times 2 we should get 10 from this message. Why don't we try? I display it. Wow, we're getting an error message. I wonder why. Well, it's actually very simple. Look, I have selected this block value column 2, value column 3. Yeah, I know what I want to do. I want to send message value column to our block. But, well, in order this to work, I have to select all 3 lines. Because, well, first line create a variable, second line assign the block to the variable, and third line execute it. All right, why don't we fix it? I select all this, and now I want to display the result. Error. And this error, well, in this new version of Smalltalk, instantiation, people from instantiation introduce a very nice feature. Like every time you define a variable, it will be stored. And later on, you can reuse the same variable without declaring it. So I don't want to really talk about this for now. I'll just fix it really quick, and we will talk about this later on. Well, if you hit this error, so you go options and clear workspace variables. That should help. Now I selected it again, all 3 lines, and I want to see the result of execution. Yep, we're getting 10. And of course we can pass something else. Let's say this. Right? We sort of reuse the same piece of code inside of our block variable, as we can reuse methods in another objects. Okay, and display. Yep, we're getting the result. Excellent. Well, take a look on this once again. So simple block, zero argument block, we send message value to it and it is working. Look, so we're getting a result. Again, in terms of objects, what is happening here? We have an object, a block, right? And we send message value to it and we're getting the result. Well, do you think it's logical to assume that there is a method value somewhere which actually does all the job and return this result? Well, it must be, right? Now the question is where it is. So we send message value to this guy, and this guy happened to be an instance of block context template. Now I want to take a look on implementation of method value. I want to find this method which actually does all this job for us. So where should I search for it? Well, in the class, right? So I'll say browse class. Okay, block context template class. Excellent. Now I want to find method value. So I select all the categories, I'll scroll down, and here it is, method value. Okay, I click on it and I can see implementation of it. Evaluate the receiver, answer the result of the last statement to be evaluated. Make perfect sense. Evaluate the receiver. Well, in our case, receiver was who? This block. Okay, answer the result of the last statement to be evaluated. Well, we have only one statement in our block, and we get this as an answer from that method. Great. Now, how about this? So one argument block, right, takes one argument. Well, we send message value column and we pass free as a parameter. Great. Now, what message do we send? Once again, value column. So now how does it work? So this guy, which is an instance of block context template, looking for a method value column. Where? In its own class. Here, right? And here's a method right here. Why don't we check it? Okay. So value column take an object as a parameter. So in our case, we pass free. So and that free was copied into an object box. Okay. Evaluate the receiver with a parameter and object. Answer the results the last statement. Okay, clear enough. So we execute this. 5. So we passed free. 2 plus 3, 5. Well, same here. 2 argument block. We send, in order to activate it, we have to send message value column, pass 2 parameters. That's exactly what we do here. So value column 2, value column 3. So where is the method value column? Yeah, it should be here. Here it is. I choose it. Yeah, first parameter is an object and another object. So in our case, 2 will be copied in this box, 3 will be copied in this box, and code will be executed. And of course, we get the same result. Well, and you may ask yourself, what do we need blocks for? Well, who's using them? What do we need them for? Well, and to tell you the truth, blocks are used everywhere in the system, everywhere. And it's such a nice feature, such a nice instrument that after a while, once you start to program in Smalltalk, you will wonder yourself, well, how did I program without blocks before? And if you have to switch to another language, you will miss it big way. I can promise you that. Extremely powerful, extremely friendly instrument. For example, take a look on this piece of code. Looks very simple, right? So we declare a temporary variable h. Easy. We assign small integer 76 to it. And now what? We compare contents of this variable with 70. So in this comparison, greater should give us true or false, right? So in our case, we compare 76 greater than 70. And the result of this execution will be what? True, which is a Boolean object, right? Okay, and now what? Well, just to make it easier for you to understand, let me illustrate this. So h actually will be 76, right? If we execute this, that will give us what? True object. Okay, great. And now take a look what is happening here. So we're getting true object here. Okay, and what do we do? What do we send to it? We send message if true column. Okay, yeah, makes sense. If true column. It's a key message which we send to Boolean object true. And what do we pass as a parameter? Well, this guy. And who is this guy? It is a block, zero argument block, which is holding piece of code. Remember, block can hold any piece of code. All right, so ready to be executed. Now take a look how natural it's become. So like we make a comparison and then we say, if it is true, do this block. Well, let's try. I'll put age back. And now I highlight all these three lines and execute it. Look, we get word old on the system transcript. Why? Well, because 76 greater than 70, right? So this evaluated to true. And we send message if true to true. And true block will be executed. Okay, interesting. Now, again, we send this message if true column. It should be a method somewhere, right? Which actually does the job for us. Well, how can we find it? Well, let's do this. I type true. What is this? Inspected. Oh, instance of class true. Perfect. That's exactly what I need. That's what we get from this, right? So we need this guy. And now I want to find a class. Okay, yeah, okay, class true. Great. Now I'm looking for method if true. Okay, I select all the category and I scroll. Okay, look, if true column, this guy. Right, so we send message if true column to Boolean object. So object will jump in its own class and search for a method which match message name exactly. So it will be looking for a method with exactly the same name as a message it's received. So this guy. Okay, so what does it do? Okay, first of all, it takes a block. Take a look on the name of the parameter. Alternative block. So block right here. Well, developer who developed that say, well, you have to pass a block as a parameter. Okay, so that's exactly what we did here, right? So we passed a block. Great. Answer result of evaluating this. Answer result of execution of this. Great. If receiver is true. Otherwise, answer nil. Interesting. Fail if our parameter is not a zero argument block. Okay, so they insist. So this block must be zero argument block. Let's say we don't believe. And we declare an argument. So I made this block, one argument block, right, which is expecting a parameter. Do you think that will work? Well, if this comment correct, it should not work. Okay, why don't we try? Take a look. I made a selection. Of course, I don't want to select true because it's not part of the statement, right? So, and I want to execute it. What do we get? An error message. Okay, block and text template invalid due to argument count. Invalid argument count. Oh, okay. So we met this problem before, right? So we understand. So that comment was correct. It must be zero argument block. So let's fix it. Good. Now let's take a look on implementation of this code. So what do you think? Very simple. They send message value to our block, to this guy, right? And this guy must understand because it is a zero argument block, and we do know zero argument blocks, they do understand message value. Simple enough, absolutely. Yeah, take a look on this. So first line, we declare a temporary variable, we initialize it with 50, small integer 50. Second line, well, salary greater than 100. Okay, well, simple comparison, right? And should give us what? True or false? Well, in our case, it should be what? False. Yeah, 50 less than 100. Okay, and now take a look. We're getting this Boolean object, and what message do we send to it? Well, we send message if true column, if false column. Agree with me? Absolutely. And we pass two blocks, two zero argument blocks as a parameters. Again, so we have a Boolean object. We're getting a Boolean object from this execution, right? And depends on what kind of object are we getting, true or false, will be executed one block or another. So if true, well, this will be printed on the system transcript. If false, that should be printed, right? And take a look, looks so natural, so easy to understand. So why don't we try? Okay, we selected it, and now I want to execute it. What do we get? Your salary is not too good. Oh, okay, why? Because, well, this evaluated to what? To false. And false block was executed. So system transcript showed that message. Great. Now why don't we try this? So 150. All right. Your salary is good. Absolutely. Again, what message do we send to our Boolean object? If true column, if false column. So we send this message and everything working perfectly fine. Well, I would say somewhere must be in method. If true column, if false column. Let's try to find it. Take a look. When we get true from this guy, from this statement, right? So true object receive a message if true column, if false column. So it starts to search a method, right? Where? In its own class. So this is true class. So who's the creator of our true object? So and here is a method, if true column, if false column. So exactly that method will be executed, right? So it takes two blocks, true block and false block, and it's saying, well, it will execute answer the result of evaluating true block if receiver is true. Otherwise, well, it's a little bit confusing, but the idea is who's the receiver of this message? In the instance of class true. Why? Because we're inside of class true, and we only get here if the receiver of this message is an instance of class true. Okay, so our first case. Then that piece of code will be executed. Executed how? Well, this is implementation of this code. True block, we send message value to it, and our true block will be executed. All right, so now what if our comparison return false? So we'll be getting a false object here, right? False object, okay? And false object will receive message if true column, if false column. Remember, first time we tried it, it's worked. But what method was working? That's a good question. Well, if we received false from here, so our object, our false object will jump in class false. Why don't we try to find it? Well, I will browse hierarchy, okay? And from this, I will browse hierarchy again. Take a look. There is a Boolean class, and that class has two subclasses. So let's take a look on false class. I will select all application. Here it is. And we're looking for if true, if false. Here it is. If true, if false. All right. Same two blocks as a parameter, and execute. The only difference is executes second block. All right. Now let me ask you that. We see several methods here, which looks very similar. If false column, if true, if true column, if false column, and if true. Would this be correct for me to say that when I talk to false object, right, instance of class false, I can send any of those messages to that object and object will respond to it. And the answer is, of course, absolutely. So basically, when we have a comparison or just a Boolean object, we can easily to send message if false column, pass a zero argument block to it, and that will work. So if true column, the same. Or if we want to compare both, if true and false conditions, so we send one of those messages. Take a look on this code. Do you think we can do that? So what is happening here? Well, we have one object here, which is what? Instance of class false, right? Inspect. Yeah, exactly. Instance of class false. Okay, and we send message if true to it, and we pass zero argument block as a parameter. So what do you think will happen? Well, let's see. I executed and nothing happened. See? Well, absolutely, because we send message if true to false object. Well, if we send it to true, so the result will be different. Take a look. Then block get executed. All right, excellent. So it's actually very, very simple, but it takes some time to adjust and start to use it. Let's see what other methods do we have in class false. For example, as integer. Oh, interesting. As integer. So does it mean I can send a message as integer to object instance of class false? Why not? Take a look. I have a false object and I send message as integer to it. Okay, simple unary message. So what do we get from this? 0. Everything seems to work just fine. No error messages, nothing. Okay, so when we send this message, it is working. So, and it must be this method who actually does the job. Why don't we take a look on this? As integer, answer the receiver as an unassigned integer. And implementation is very simple. Simply return 0 from that method. So, and that's what we're getting. How about true? Take a look. True class for instances of this class have the same method as integer, but implementation is slightly different. So if we send message as integer to true object, we should get what? Well, let's see. Exactly, works perfectly fine. Well, take a look on this code. We send message to true object, and what message do we send? Not. Interesting. What do you think that will return? Let's see. False. Interesting. Now, why don't we check implementation of method not? And here it is. True class, instance side, method not. Well, answer true if the receiver is false, and false if the receiver is true. Yeah, our receiver is true, so it should return false. Yep, simply return false from the method. How about false object? We have the same method, implementation is different. Why don't we test it? Okay, so false object, we send message not, and we're getting true, of course. And this is an implementation of this method.